Right, Clubhouse. So if anyone has a question or wants to say anything, chime in or add a point, please pop your hand up. I will let you in and or to talk, so to speak. But does anyone have any pressing questions that they wanted to start off with? I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I would like to talk about. I've got some crypto stuff which I thought would be interesting to cover, and a few other bits and bobs. But does anyone want to kick off with any questions? Again, on Facebook Live, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. Okay, we have our first hand up. Hey Tom, how's it going? And we've got James. Hey, long time. So both of you, you have the floor.
Hey Siam, how's it going?
Hey Tom, good. Always good to hear you, mate.
And you, mate, and you. So my question, I haven't fully been able to get through the acquisition Q&A you did last week, but It kind of comes off the back of that.
Sure.
Do you think there would be a way of getting, I guess, at least shares in a company that could be used in terms of or compared to an acquisition by offering services of some sort? Because I know that you know, the way you add value is by lead funnels, etc., but by doing that, you've already bought a portion of the company, haven't you? So I'm wondering if you think there's a way of doing that without really exchanging money, but services instead.
Yeah, I would definitely watch the recordings of the previous sessions. They're all on my YouTube channel in the Wealth Generation playlist, but I go through in depth to a degree the way I acquire things. It's called the Nora method. But I don't want to tie up this wealth chat today with that.
No, appreciate that. That's perfect.
It's like a 45-minute explanation of it all. Because when I buy businesses, I don't actually put any money in them.
I must have missed that point. Okay.
Yeah, so I do them via a call option. So it costs me £1 and a bit of time. So yeah, but
right,
yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I'll make sure I go back and watch them in full. Then. We'll ignore the question for now.
Thanks, mate. So James, did you have a question, mate?
I do, actually.
Hi.
I'm looking to buy another business. I've got a skin care clinic.
Cool.
And we've got two of them, actually. And I'm looking to buy another one. If you were looking to buy a skin care clinic, for instance, where would you look for it? You've got business for sale and all that kind of thing, but how would you actually go about picking a company that you want to buy?
Yeah. Again, so the in-depth answer, I would redirect you to that the video recording of the Wealth Gen chat we had on Friday, because again we go into that in a lot of detail. But the quick answer is that I would do a direct approach. So do you have a rough area of where you want to acquire that clinic? Is it
Yes, Southwest London.
Okay, cool. So what you would need to do is I would probably find someone to do a bit of canvassing for you. So go on Upwork or have one of your existing members of staff to try and populate a list of every skin care clinic in your target area. And you'll come up with, I don't know, 20 of them or 100. I mean, do you have a rough idea how many there would be within a 50-mile radius?
There'd be hundreds in a 50-mile radius.
Hundreds. Okay, cool. That's good. So let's just say it's 200. So you've now got a list of 200 of them, and then your person, whoever does the compliance, or it could be you, if you want to spend hours doing this, you then need to go to Company's House and find the director of each company. So you can actually go to, Company's House will show you the director of each company, and it will give you their reporting address. Sometimes it may be their home address, or maybe, most of the time it's actually the director's personal address. And so now you've got 200 personal addresses and the name of whoever the director is. And then you need to write a very very candid letter. So you don't make it a sales letter. Don't have a catchy headline or title like you see in like sales letters and stuff. I mean, it's literally just write a letter along the lines of, "Hi, my name is James. I'm in this industry. I've got a pot of money and I'm looking to expand. And I'm looking to buy into or invest in a skin clinic between this size, this percentage margin, this blah blah blah," and actually quote your criteria, because that will be a bit of a filter for you. And the way I found and before you think I'm stalking you, all I did was find 200 odd skincare clinics in this area, and then I got one of my helpers to find the address for each one, and that's how I'm writing, and that's how I found you. And so I'm sending this identical letter to 200 other skincare clinics in your area. And due to my capacity or my mental capacity and money capacity, I can only afford to invest or acquire just one business. And so I like to go full in with whoever I get in bed with, yada yada yada. And so all I would love is for a phone chat. Here is my mobile number. Please send me a text or an email, and I'd love to have a proper chat, and we can see if it's a right fit for you and I. Most likely it's not going to be a right fit. However, I'm genuinely hoping 1 out of 200 there's going to be a match made in heaven. So, and then literally just be as candid as that, and see who replies, and you'll probably get 20 replies, 10 of them will be useless, and then you'll probably get 10 semi-interested people. And then what I used to do is, you can do two things. So I used to direct people to a dinner. So I'd say, hey, on this date, in like a month and a half time, I'm holding a swanky 5-course dinner in the penthouse suite in Piccadilly Circus or whatever, and blah blah blah. And and the format I used to do was Q&A over starters. I'd then do a main presentation over dinner as a main course, and then and then Q&A over dessert. So you'd have to skip your main course, and then, but like anything, it's all about mini steps. So you're not trying to say, hey, I'm going to buy your business. Like, it's just like, hey, can I have a phone call? And then the phone call leads to a meeting. A meeting leads to another meeting. And it's just a bit like dating at the end of the day. Like, you don't go into a pub or a bar and go, will you have sex with me? Will you have sex with me? Like, if you play the numbers game, someone's going to have sex with you. But if you played a slower numbers game, or a better approach numbers game, your conversion rate or your numbers are going to be better. So so if your goal was to, hey, can I buy you a drink? Let's have a chat. Can we meet for coffee? Can we meet for brunch? Can we meet for whatever? And then ask for sex, on the 10th date or whatever it is. But obviously do that in the business sense. You have a better approach. Does that make sense, James?
It does make sense, yeah.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't go anywhere near any of these agencies
that
have got business for sale or anything like that?
No. So companies on business for sale are of two sort of ilk. One, it's normally a business that's been up for sale for a long time, and then they've gone, bugger this, I'll just, what is the eBay or Auto Trader equivalent for businesses? Business for sale, okay, I'll do that. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. So sometimes you can get pretty matured deals on there, but most of the time you're going to get screwed over by business brokers. Now, I have a very low opinion on business brokers, and for good reason. So imagine the stereotypical shyster of an estate agent. Like the most dodgy estate agent you can think of. Well, nearly every business broker I've ever encountered has been worse than the most dodgy estate agent you can think of. Literally. And their incentives are unaligned. Okay, their incentives are not for their client. So I've been in at least, and it's not just me that thinks this, I've got a bunch of M&A buddies, and we all have the same opinion. So I've been in at least 5 meetings where I've gone to acquire a business. And this was back in the early days where I did go to businesses for sale, etc. And the representative from business for sale or business broker will be in the meeting. Now you have to understand how people get paid. So when it's a typical business broker, the way that they charge is that they'll say, hey, yeah, we'll take an upfront, like a lump sum fee to do for marketing purposes. So they'll say, yeah, it's a $2,000 fee, and that way we investigate your business and we put it out on there on the market, blah blah blah, and then they'll probably have a retainer. So in order to maintain the marketing and get eyeballs on your business, that's another £500 a month or £200 a month or whatever, and then they'll look for a cut or a percentage as in a performance fee. But here's the thing: there's no I don't think I've ever seen one of a risk-free one where they'll say no win, no fee. So they live on the retainer, not the exit, and a very, very small percentage of businesses are sold through business of sale, because they live on the retainer basically. And so every meeting I had, a business broker, I would be suggesting things, and they would always be interrupting. They're like, no, and they're trying to inflate the asking price as high as possible to the point where it kills the meeting. and because they want the percentage of the asking price. And so 5 meetings at least I've been absolutely scuppered. And the ironic thing is, like 18 months later, those business owners come back and say, hey, are you still interested in buying the business? I was like, yes, as long as we don't have that douchebag in the meeting. Obviously I don't say douchebag. I say, yeah. So don't do business broke. And here's the thing, they're very sneaky. So the way they get their clients is that they'll literally plaster, letter, or even call all these businesses. And let's say there's a business which has a legitimate exit value of, 500 grand. They'll call that business up and go, hey, I've just had interest on my website of a business of your, particular sector. And this business buyer is looking to buy up a business for around the 800 grand mark. Would you be interested at all? Now the business owner goes, ooh, wait a minute, my business is only worth $500,000. Of course I'm interested. And then they have a chat. They then, share the fees. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, okay. So this business broker is pretty convinced I can sell my business for 800 grand. So what does the business owner do? They come up with, inside you come up with a risk to reward seesaw. So the business owner goes, right, the costs is going to cost me a lump sum plus, 500 quid a month retainer with no guarantee of success. So let's say I use him for a year. So it's going to cost me, call it 6 grand. So that's the cost. But what's the upside? The upside is, an extra 300 grand from what, is fair value. So the business owner goes, 6 grand to potentially get an extra 300 grand. Yeah, why not? Screw it, let's do it. And then a very small percentage actually work. So again, business brokers are just not worth the time. So I would always go down the grassroots thing and just messaging them. Obviously these days we can't have a coffee or a swanky dinner, but it's going to have to be over Zoom. Oh, mind you, if it's legitimate business purposes, maybe you can get away with it. I don't know, but it's your call.
Okay, and if you find, let's say I have found a business that I'm keen on.
Yep.
By going through the procedure you suggested, how would you go about getting that business or not putting any money down on that business?
So with that one, I went through. Please look at the wealth generation chats we had on Friday. They're on my YouTube channel in the wealth gen chat. It's just I don't want this call today to be a carbon copy of Friday, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
But I do go through it. It's called the Nora method that I created. Basically, I bought a whole bunch of businesses, lost so much money in probably the first 5 or 6 businesses I bought. Then I was like, screw this. There must be a way of, I hate the term no money down business, but I sort of combined my trading knowledge with M&A, and I came up with literally a risk-free way of acquiring businesses. Sounds like too good to be true, but do listen to there was 2 sessions I did on Friday, one at 11 o'clock, one at 1600. So yeah, so thanks Tom and James. Sorry I've sort of fobbed you off to last week's thing. I just don't want to bore, or not bore, but there are a lot of questions here that I am seeing. So anyone on Clubhouse have any questions, please pop your hand up. I'm just going to read through the chat. So despite the... Okay, so one question is from Bijan. I'm so sorry if I've said your name wrong. Sorry. He says, despite the inevitable real estate crash coming up in the UK, do you believe that a mass exodus of Hong Kongers coming to the UK, escaping China's government interference, may at least prop up the property market a bit, given that such a huge amount of them have been granted asylum here? It's a fair shout. I mean, but mind you, that argument, I've heard that argument a lot, that there's always a stream of money coming in abroad, whether it's Russian money, Chinese money, or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I think, but at the end of the day, when the equity markets roll over, property will roll over with it. They're intrinsically linked because of the way that the global derivatives web is set up. So it will come crashing down when equities roll over again, much like March 2020, etc., where everything froze. So I think the stock market and property will probably rally for a tiny bit more, but yeah, at the end of the day, when the rollover happens, it's going to be brutal. I posted up a link that basically all the main banks are being stress tested at the moment to prepare to see how they would do if the stock market's crashed 55%. Now, I mean, this is somewhat of a regular stress testing that they do, but there have been different stipulations in this stress testing, and nearly always, whenever some mass thing happens, not just in finance, there is always a testing exercise beforehand. It's no different over here, and so I think a lot of people are going to get caught with their pants down, thinking that this rally is going to go on forever. Unfortunately, it won't. So, any other questions? So, Jonathan, yes, I am taking questions. So, he said, if so, what's your opinion on the housing market over the next 6 to 12 months? I'm bearish, especially commercial property. Definitely high street commercial property is game over. But then in turn will give a bit of a maybe potential upside for residential conversions. Maybe, because you have all these massive shopping centres that are completely empty. Everyone's defaulting on their rent. The shopping centres themselves are defaulting. If you look at all of the shopping malls across the US, most of them are massively behind their obligations and going bust. I mean, if you live in Norwich, I think, in Jonathan, I know you're in the Norfolk area, just go to the Castle Mall and just have a little walk around the Castle Mall. Or Castle Quarter, they've rebranded it. Pretty much every shop is empty, and because it's so freaking empty of shops, they've had to repurpose them as the ping pong table room, or the table football room, or the honest library room, or whatever. Like, they're trying to fill up the space because all the businesses are going bust or just not paying their rent. So it's pretty dire. But yeah, so I mean, as I said, I've got a few other things I want to talk about. But any other questions?
I've got one a bit more space left. If you'll take it.
Yeah, please.
So, other than investing in the obvious sort of Facebook, HP, Microsoft, and the likes that are releasing sort of VR and mixed reality headsets, have you worked out any way of kind of investing for the long run in the kind of VR, AI, mixed reality future that we're heading towards?
No, I haven't. I think a lot of I don't know. I think I mentioned in the last one. There's the Gartner hype cycle, which I think, if you're ever looking at tech, like if anyone's trying to invest in tech, there's a couple of rules of thumb. So if it's a brand new tech, it's going to take 10 years to get to market. Well, there's a bit of a caveat there, and also there's the Gartner hype cycle. And so what the Gartner hype cycle is like a stretched out S curve, and you have sort of two hype cycles. You have two cycles. So you have the hype cycle, which is the stretch out S curve, where you have massive hype. It then plateaus when the product fails to deliver, and then you have the eventual other part of the S, where it then starts to gain traction. But what happens with that is that the hype curve out accelerates the tech progression curve. Nearly always. I mean, look at VR. So VR was around a good 30 years ago. I remember I went to Great Yarmouth, arcade when I was like 10 years old, and they had a VR machine there. It was like this massive machine. I had to put this freaking dustbin on my head, and I was playing VR, and I was like, "What? This is amazing!" Everything was like proper blocky 2D. But what happened? Massive hype, and then not much happened for the next 20 years. So, in terms of trying to get in on it right now, I think it's still a bit early. I mean, a load of people got burned with, was it Magic Leap? I think Magic Leap raised billions and billions of dollars from this new game-changing technology. And then it turned out that they had no game-changing technology. It was basically a normal AR, so augmented reality pair of glasses, where you had to wear the battery as a waist belt with a freaking wire connected. It just wasn't game changing at all. So I think it's worth just waiting. I don't see any real plays at the moment. As I said, like I mentioned this the other one. I've got a Reverb G2 headset here, and this is the best retail VR headset you can get on the market, and it's still shit in my opinion. I think it's just too early. The hardware's not there yet. Like when the hardware gets to like wireless swimming goggle size with great peripheral vision, with a very high refresh rate, no barn dooring, that's when things would kick off. But for now, I think we're probably a good 3 to 5 years away before that catches up.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts on it. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, we have a hand up here, which is Adam. Hit me, Adam. And then Vernon, I'll go to your question next.
Just a question for you. Looking at demographic spending waves and consumer life cycles, do you think there's going to be any significant changes in that over the next whatever time period you like to choose?
That is a great question. That's an epic question. Thank you for that. So for those who are not familiar with the demographic spending wave, it's something which I'm really keen on. And again, trying to draw this verbally is going to be hard. So imagine a bell curve, okay? So like a big old hill, a very steep hill, basically. And the demographic spending wave is very accurate. So we've got like a good 60 years of very accurate retail spending, to the point where in the US and also Europe, we know, like within plus or minus a year, your peak spending on any particular thing. So off the top of my head, your peak, so you have the sort of like, excuse my language, the bell end of the curve is your peak earning and peak spending. So between the age of 45 and 55, bell end a bit, that is when you earn the most money in your life, and that's when you're spending the most money of your life. And there are certain fundamentals behind that. So for example, in that, that peak spending, peak earning thing, I think when you're like 44 years old, you spend more money ever in your life on furniture. And like, what's the reason behind that? And that's because typically when you're about 44 years old, you have kids or multiple kids, and they're entering the teenage years, and so you end up buying more beds, more furniture for more bedroom stuff, and also you're spending more stuff in your house, to the point where if you go right to the other end of the bell curve, I think you spend more money ever in your life on cruise liners when you're 70 years old, or is it 75 years old? It's one of those two. It's been a while since but there's a million different points on there, and it's because you retire when you're 65, you go travelling around the world, and then you're so bored of waiting in airports and queues that you're like, screw it, put me on a boat and feed me and booze me up, and I'm happy. And that's why you have like peak spending in cruise liners when you're 70, and then there's grass care, lawn care when you're 80s, in the 80s, which is nuts. And so when you look at Richard Branson and all the business Richard Branson has done since the 1960s, he has followed the demographic spending wave perfectly, because he is a baby boomer, and all he's done is he's set up businesses that his generation like. So when he was young, he set up Virgin Records, because guess what? It was like the 70s, and everyone's getting into not hip hop, rock and roll, and tubular bells, that sort of stuff. And so he did really well. And as he's as he's grown older, he set up businesses basically going with his demographic, i.e. a baby boomer. And guess what? Virgin, or Richard Branson, is massively into healthcare, to the point he's got a pretty large percentage of the NHS. Now, that's the pretext to Adam's question. So Adam's question is, with how things have changed right now, is it gonna adjust the spending demographic? And the honest answer is, I don't know, mate, because I haven't actually thought about it, which is why I really love the question, because I literally haven't had any thought about it. Okay, so let's look at the peak earning, peak spending. So I guess that's probably not going to change too much, because the reason we enter peak earning, peak spending between the age of 45 and 55 is because you would have spent a good 20 odd years in the workforce. You're not going to be peak spending or peak earning in your 20s, because you've only been in the workforce for 10 years, roughly. So I don't think that's going to change. I think the places and where we spend stuff is going to change for sure. Like Amazon's just hoovering up that market share. If there's a crypto version of Amazon, is like a decentralized version of Amazon, that's I think the only thing that will kill Amazon, a decentralized version, like a crypto version of Amazon. But that's going to be a long while. It's important to know about slow growth versus fast growth, and basically the speed that you grow your company and the speed that you reach the peak of your company is your half-life. So if it took you 20 years to peak your business, it's going to take you 20 years to before your business becomes obsolete and destroyed. Now Bezos, he's been going for a good 20 odd years, and I don't think he's peaked yet. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon. Whereas if you see companies that flash in the pan, they've 2 years in massive, and 2 years later they've forgotten. So, but that's not really answering your question, Adam. The honest answer is I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
I'll give you my two that I think
that would be handy.
Will change. It's not a question, but I'll give you my opinion. I think we'll see prescription drugs coming younger and younger, significantly younger and younger. Yeah, and I think college tuition will fall apart. I think people will realise the bonsai behind it. Yeah.
When you look at the education graph, as in tuition cost graph, it's an exponential. It's exponential. So if you plot the graph of earnings, adjusted, readjusted for inflation, etc., it's pretty much flat. And then when you look at tuition costs, it's exponential. It's gone up like 1,500% over the last, is it 10 years or 20 years? I can't remember. So yeah, I agree. There's going to be a massive. I think COVID and all this lockdown bollocks is pretty much the pin that is going to deflate the education debt bomb, because it is a massive debt bomb. It's in the trillions in the States, and I think everything's moving towards remote learning. And I mean, there's lots of different education platforms out there where, there have been a Learning X Prize which was funded by Elon, but a lot of these new sort of innovative learning platforms are out there trying to teach people that can't read or write. So I think I remember reading it as part of the X Prize. There was this company that created this sort of computer game that could teach someone how to read even though they couldn't read. And what they did is they went to like these remote villages in India, and they installed like a couple of tablets like fixed into like the wall in the middle of the village. Okay, so no one could tamper with them, etc. And these tablets just had this like education game, and it was just a massive experiment. And what happened is that like every day they had these groups around these tablets, these big old iPads, playing this game, etc. But through doing that over this period of a year, like loads of kids had learned how to read English, or was it Punjabi? I can't remember. It was either one of the two, and which is fascinating. I mean, hell, there's another topic. So, yeah, I think, and also with the online with the prescriptions, it's going to be a lot easier to get prescriptions. I feel like the amount of mental health problems that the world, like, so pre-2020, before the car ran off the road, 25% of Americans were on antidepressants. Crazy stat. 25% of Americans were on antidepressants. What do you think that figure is going to be now? It's got to go up. So yeah, I agree with you, Adam. So it's a great question. I'm going to have to ponder on that because it's got my brain firing. Okay, so I promised Vernon in a Facebook message I would answer his question. So Vernon has asked, we are running a new project helping people learn their lawful rights on Zoom sessions. There's huge interest and very big numbers attending our basic training every week. We offer subscription membership and advanced training. So is this like common law that you're teaching, Vernon? We offer subscription membership and advanced training. Any suggestions on how to deal with such a high flow of interest? The nature of the business is more about empowering as many people ASAP, but would be good to make it successful as a business too. Yeah, okay, so it's a good question. So can you just elaborate? Are you basically teaching common law and strawman theory? Just a quick question, just for context. So, yes, common law, natural law, yeah, cool. Okay, so I'll start with a caveat, or my bit of a warning, and then I'll go into the business model, because I think this is very apt, and I fully understand why there's such a high interest in common law right now. I've personally jumped down the common law rabbit hole, strawman theory, all that sort of stuff. I've got a lot of lawyer friends as well. So I know a couple of QCs, a lot of barristers, etc. And I've poked every single one of them. And like to the point it was like, Siam, you're not going to talk about common law again, are you? I'm like, yes, I've got more questions, and you're my friend. And it's interesting. So I approach everything with a wildly open mind. Okay, I'll listen to everything. I mean, hell, I'm an ex-Air Force pilot, and I subjected myself to 3 and a bit hours of flat Earth YouTube videos. Like, that's how open-minded I am. Even though I know the world is an oblate spheroid, I still watched a whole bunch of bullshit flat Earth videos. Just, yeah, and yeah, that is my solid opinion. It's total BS, flat Earth. So, yeah, so I went down the rabbit hole. Now, in terms of like common law and type stuff, I think the thing you have to be very careful with your business, Vernon, is that a lot of people are going to unnecessarily screw themselves royally by misinterpreting common law. Okay, so we've seen a big old influx of business owners citing the Magna Carta 2020 or common law, etc., and that a lot of these stuff is statute law and not common law and all that sort of stuff. And these, you've probably seen in the papers, a hairdresser refuses to shut closed doors and is now fined 10 grand and then another 10 grand, and before you know it, they're being dragged through statute law with going bankrupt. I mean, I think that I read of one, like a gym owner being charged, fined £50,000 and is now going bankrupt. And even though he was, citing the Magna Carta 2020, common law, blah, 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 and that the police are a corporation just there to collect taxes and fines, etc., and not blah, blah, blah. So I fully get where you're coming from, but I think you've got to be super careful, because when the inevitable blowback comes back, for example, let's say that gym owner goes, yeah, but I learned it from Vernon James, that blah blah blah. There's going to be a lot of blowback on your business. Okay, that's the one warning, that you must be super careful. So your business has to be primarily an informational or educational business. Okay, and I think the way that you could do it won't be too dissimilar from the WAP, which is what I run, but with a few tweaks. So what you could do is you could set up a whole bunch of very quick, less than 2 minute videos, and you plaster them everywhere on YouTube, Facebook, etc., and use it as Facebook ads as well. And that will generate your interest, and that will then and populate them into a Facebook group. Okay, so your own Facebook group. I think you've already got a big one, and so you populate it till you have a few thousand people. Where you're interviewing solicitors, interviewing all sorts of other people, etc., and just delivering good content. Help put it in a video course, that they can have access to. And I think so you can have that membership where people can get direct answers from you, etc. But you also need another back end, and I think the good back end would be with a solicitor firm. So I actually try to find a solicitor that would, because I actually thought of this as a business, which I then stopped because I didn't see too many legs with it. But if you had a modern day a statute solicitor, so all solicitors are versed in statute law, obviously crime and civil and all that sort of stuff. But if you found a civil lawyer that was extremely well versed in in common law as well, that is your golden ticket, mate. So what you would have is the back end to this. So for your members, anyone that is going down the common law route that wants to go against the police force or whatever, you can then you would partner up with this solicitor who's very well, or it doesn't even need to be someone who's versed up in common law. You just need to find an open-minded solicitor that sees the business proposition, and the proposition is that the solicitor will be the official public face that can give actual legal advice, legally, and all that person needs to do is just brush up on the knowledge. I mean, I did about 10 hours of deep diving of focused learning, and I learned quite a lot. And so if you found an open-minded solicitor that did 10 hours of focused learning, they would know far more because they got bigger context behind them. And then you go 50-50. You set up a company and you'll be the common law firm, a law firm or whatever. And that would be, the main person. So I think does that make sense, Vernon, where I'm going? But the way you do it is Facebook ads for sure. So the reason I operate with Facebook ads more than anything, primarily, is it's the best client attraction journey filter. So again, or some people, easier word is funnel. But you can get very cheap eyeballs, very cheap clicks to stuff on Facebook, and then when you have something that works, then you can then explore other avenues. So you can then try Google pay-per-click, LinkedIn ads, all that sort of stuff. But I then only go to other marketing pillars once I know that your existing pillar works and with a good conversion rate, and then you can go and get more expensive clicks elsewhere. So Vernon said, we're teaching the empowerment side of it, role play, etc. Cool. Okay. But at the end of the day, please also remember that we're in different times now whereby, one of the things that I learned is that very early on in 2020, they exercised the Coronavirus Act. And the Coronavirus Act got rid of, literally, it just basically took a shotgun and destroyed a huge chunk of our civil liberties, which is why you're getting such big feedback. But it also gave them extra powers. It gave the government lots of extra powers which it didn't have before. And when you look at history, whenever there's new changes in law or whatever, those liberties are not given back. So if you dive and dig around what Dick Cheney did in the US political system, he ran rings around everyone. Dick Cheney, he was basically running the US and George Bush was his puppet. But the things that he did behind the scenes to give him more power was unreal, and it gave future US presidents way more power than they used to have. And so I think, by teaching the empowerment side, just honestly, I've seen other business sectors which have, which can be sticky, fire back at them. So please just be super careful that you're not giving advice, but you're simply educating, and otherwise it's going to blow back at you, mate. Cool. Yeah, but for you, your winning ticket is finding a very open-minded solicitor, and then you going 50-50. So that solicitor will be doing, the revenue, earning the fees with legal fees. Because not like 9 times out of 10, all the stuff when someone starts quoting common law, and then the police or the local council will start dragging you through statute law, they'll end up in jail eventually, and then you will need a statute lawyer. So you need that person, and your 50% equity or chunk of the business will be from lead flow. So you will be able to throw as many leads to your solicitor partner as you can. So basically your business mate is setting up a law firm, and you don't have to be a solicitor to set up a law firm. So that's that. Right, we've been talking for 38 minutes. We're going to have to call it a day there. These chats is only supposed to be half an hour, so we don't cover too much in any session. But did today help at all?
Interesting.
Cool. Well, hope it helped Adam, so helped one person. Right.
Yes, but it's great.
Cool. Well, I'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock again, and gotta love you and leave you, folks. Toodles, everyone. Bye.